cleaner than the other guy.
Well, my snap is louder than my voice.
Doing more rooftop.
But we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our utility committee meeting. It is 11:01. I am going to turn it over to Mr. Ivy, who is going to start our presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Certainly appreciate that. Before I get started, I want to make a recognition. This is the last meeting for one of our longer-term meeting residents, Mr. Terry Dennis. He's going to be leaving the utility committee. Terry has served advisory panel. He's sat through a couple of sessions on our risk oversight committee to kind of see how we do things there as well. He's traveled with us to D.C. For the American Public Power Association meetings. He has been at the municipal electric meetings. Unfortunately, I think you went to the one that was in Champions Gate, though,
yes,
right?
Yes, I did.
Sorry about that. This year, by the way, they're going back to the breakers. I'm not going to get to make that one either. So, but we certainly do appreciate your guidance, your leadership while you've been sitting through all these things that you've been serving on with us. And I just want to say thank you so much for that service, and we appreciate it.
I want to thank the commission for allowing me to serve on here. It's been great. But from a personal side, when I joined, I'd been a resident in Lakeland for over 40 years, so using Lakeland Electric personally, and as you know, at my workplace, I am the direct contact for everything Lakeland Electric. So when I started here, I actually thought I knew Lakeland Electric. And this has been the biggest educational opportunity for me because I did not understand how complex the decisions made in this room are. And I also didn't appreciate the expertise and strength of this staff. So I want to thank you for converting me to becoming a very strong Lakeland Electric proponent.
We've been converted to the side.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And stop calling me. Okay. I'm kidding. It's been a great run. He's been the representative for LEDC, right? And so LEDC has appointed another person who will be starting at the next meeting.
Okay.
And that person is from LRH, actually. All right, let's go into the fuel rate presentation. You all have probably seen it. It's a little anticlimactic. We're not really going to be asking for much, but a vote to do nothing. But I did think it'd be helpful to maybe step through why we're coming to this conclusion. So we typically would, we have seasons where we inject into storage and pull out of storage. So going through the winter time, when the loads pick up, mainly up in the north and the northeast, we tend to withdraw out. And so that is what we've been doing. And you toss in the obvious conflict that's going on overseas. We're also probably maxing out the LNG export terminals. You can see what's highlighted in blue at the bottom. The prices over there are about $26 an MMBTU. And I made a little note down at the bottom. What we're paying is about $4.60. So you can see that price variation for what they're having to go through. They've been fairly reliant on Russian natural gas, I think to the tune of, what did I say, about 20%. And we were 20-25% range. We're running at about 50% of their usage now. So that's kind of a big deal. And you can imagine at that price differential, I'm not sure what the price is at the terminal, but it's quite a bit more than what they're selling gas for domestically. You can bet on that. So the rush is to get as much into the LNG supply area as you possibly can. All right, so storage is going down. Consequently, when storage goes down, prices go up. That's just the way that it works. It's a direct proportion. I think it's helpful periodically to do a true up to kind of see where are we at space and time in terms of our prices, because we tend to come to you and we just dump a bunch of data at you and ask you to vote on stuff. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know that we always do a fair enough job to delineate that, but you can kind of see we're not too far out of sorts with where our pricing is right now, but it's starting to look like it's trending to stay up for a while. Now, the good news is the last rig count I saw looks like that's starting to trend up as well. Drill, baby, drill. We need to make sure we get more gas into this pipeline, because if we're going to keep exporting as much as we are, we're going to be falling further and further behind. The good news is we're all greedy capitalists at heart, and people are going to want to make money in the oil fields, and they are going to drill, and this is probably going to be a self-solving problem. We just don't know when. So this is going to moderate eventually as the wells pick up and get back into production. You can kind of see, we don't look at these as volatility. Volatility would be a lot larger price swings than what you're seeing for the main parts of the graph. But the points with the polar vortices, I'll say, that is an indication of more volatility. And so as we hit these points, you want to make sure that you're covered so that you're not really having to pay that big of a price and impacting your consumers that much. And so that's one of the reasons why we do such a strong financial hedging program, for example. And you can see with the ERCOT piece that happened last year, there are municipalities and maybe other organizations that are literally filing bankruptcy because of what happened in that situation. I'll point out right here, you can barely see it. It doesn't look like much of a trend, but that's when we set our winter peak. Our all-time system peak was back in 2010. And so if you get enough cold days in a row, even the northern visitors are going to turn their heater on eventually. Even Sean Sherrouse, where is he? Even Sean will turn his heater on eventually. He's notorious for not wanting to pay high bills to me. So. But that's when we set our winter peak, was back in 2010. We haven't done that since because we haven't had that long period of days in a row for those very low temperatures. Okay. So, sorry. That's all right. So we look at the NYMEX. You have to have some kind of science behind how are you setting your future outlook for when we come to you guys and ask for setting our prices. Look at the blue bars as the amount of uncertainty that might exist in the market. That's basically a 52-week min-max. And it tends to narrow down as you get out in time because it's a forecast. Right, we're just doing the best we can with the information that we've got. The triangles at the top are the most recent future look at what the prices are going to be, and then in the middle you can see the black dots. That's what the last forecast was that we brought to you all. So you can kind of see that difference. It's the old adage, a forecast is as good as the day that you write it, and then you throw it away and go do another one, right? That's what this whole business is about, but you got to have some kind of science behind it in order to come up with these numbers. And the NYMEX is actually what we use for that. So the belief system is the price is going to moderate out here in the 2023 timeframe and start to get to be, hey, Ashley, start to get to be a little bit better price for what we're hoping that we would see. Okay, any questions? Cool. All right, the good news. So we talked about hedging a lot, and we talked about it the last meeting too. We actually came out on top of the hedging program last time. We came out on top of the hedging program again. And one of the reasons is the Risk Oversight Committee has delegated to the mini Risk Oversight Committee, which is Tori, Gina Jacoby, and Jeff Stearns. Those are three people that sit on that. And so they determine when and how much hedging they're going to do out in space and time. We gave them the ability, with your blessing, as I recall, to go out as much as 3 years into the future. Well, that was pretty cool because we did that when the price of gas was really low. And so they were able to put some futures out there at a very, very good price that helped us and impacted this right here today. So you can see the price, the actual market prices that we're seeing. February closed for some reason way out of sorts. Ka-ching, we saved a lot of money on that one. That worked very much in our favor. It was dumb luck, but we'll take that every single time. All day. So you can kind of see, though, as we get out in time, we're probably losing some of those 3-year hedge instruments that we put out there, and so it's starting to get to be a little bit closer together. But it's still a very beneficial program for us. And Tori mentioned to me that if we weren't financially hedged, we'd probably be looking at $15 higher than what the rate is right now today. So that's quite a bit of a savings. And I don't know off the top of my head the cost. The annual cost is like $3 to $4 million, I think, right, Gina?
About 6.
About 6, okay. So that's a pretty substantial savings that we're getting out of it. Okay.
But your lifeline is also a projection, right? So the difference is a projection was,
That's the NYMEX looking out in time.
but if it was conservative and it goes out of whack,
Yeah.
you're still,
Yeah.
you're better off.
Right. If for whatever reason the conflict causes, the prices to stay up or whatever might happen,
The hedging's gonna,
yeah, sorry, we're covered pretty well with that red line.
yeah, that's,
Yeah. So really, I can't, those three folks are doing a lot of work to try to make sure that this happens, and we should be carrying them around on our shoulders because they're really doing a great job. All right, so where the rubber meets the road, our fuel reserves, we got a little bit, you saw that in the hedging slide, you saw that little benefit we got in February. Well, that added back into our reserves, and that's one of the reasons why it's really difficult to say when and how do you start giving this money back to the consumers, because it belongs to them. We want a $20 million reserve. That's what we want to maintain. And then we try to keep it on or about that on a 12-month basis, rolling look ahead. That is the goal. That is the policy that we're using to run this program. And it's very difficult. You all remember when we had 30 or 31 or maybe even $32 million, COVID hit, and we elected to drop it drastically to try to give that back as fast as we could. So those are things that we can and should do. Where we are today, remember that we just did the deal, signed the agreement so that FGT will take over our pipeline, and that's going to be, I think, is November 2023. Do you remember, Ramon?
Yeah, 2023.
Okay, so that's when that will actually take place. Part of that is, so they took out that huge capital carry that we were going to have to make to relocate that pipeline. That was going to be well over $20 million. Okay, so that burden is on them, and we're paying for it in time through the rates. We still have to remove the pipe that's in the ground, though. So the pipe along SR33 is about $3 million to pull out of the ground, as I recall. And then we got a segment along Tomco Road, which is probably going to be another $1 million. The Tomco Road isn't directly related to the SR33 expansion, so we're probably not going to get that out of the ground until maybe 25, right? Something like that. That's my guess. But the SR33 piece, we're going to get it out of the ground whenever FDOT does a project and FGT transfers the pipelines over. Everybody good on that?
What was the number on the 33 price?
I'm sorry?
Was it 3 million?
On the SR33, it's probably about $3 million. That's just to remove that pipe out of the road. And whoever's doing the construction at the time on the road, is my understanding, is going to be the one that's taking that pipe out for us. So it just bleeds right in. So if you look at this, we still need to maintain a bit of an adder because we've got to take that pipeline out because we are going to use the fuel rate in order to pay for it still. But at the same time, we're sitting on, $27.5 million. So we've got $7.5 million in surplus in our reserve. Our concern looks out here because we're supposed to be doing a 12-month look ahead, and the goal is to be at par, which is $20 million on a 12-month basis. So we're not making that, but at the same time, I can't come to you and say I need an increase when I got $27.5 million sitting in the bank. I just don't feel right about that. We may, if the prices of gas don't moderate quicker than what we're thinking, then we may need to come in at some point in time and ask for that increase, but we're here every 3 months to talk with you all about this, so I'm pretty comfortable with that. The ask that we were going to come in with was $1 increase, but again, I'm not going to ask for an increase when we've got that much money in the bank. Let's roll the dice a little bit and see how it goes over the next couple of months, and I think we can make a better decision then. Okay? Then, of course, my favorite slide. Is it good? Is it bad? If you don't know the history, it's kind of hard to know where you're sitting right now, but we're about average with long-term basis. And really what you don't see is the mid-2000s, I should say. It goes back out that way where the prices were quite a bit higher, and they tended to fluctuate a lot more. I mean, in the mid-2000s, the pundits of the time were stating that natural gas is going to go above $10 and never come back. And so in 2009, the shale revolution started with the modern age of fracking and stuff like that. And of course, now we've got a lot better price commodity than we've ever had. And hopefully that's going to hang around for a good long time. So, Mayor Pro Tem, the recommendation to the committee is to maintain the current fuel rate at $40 per megawatt hour.
Do you need?
Yeah, if you can, Mayor Pro Tem, if you could just ask for members to vote on that motion.
We have a motion. Mr. Music seconds. All in favor? Opposed?
You guys beat Tori up a lot. You feel sorry for me, that's what it is, isn't it? We got a couple of more things we want to bring to you. These are discussion items, Mayor Pro Tem, if you don't mind. These are some things that have come up, and I believe Commissioner Madden has some interest in some of these things too. So Joey Curry is going to lead us through the discussion on which one?
Lyman.
So our linemen competed in a rodeo recently, and we got something pretty cool to show you. And then also, we've been dealing with some supply chain issues, and I'll just say this right now and get it over with. We have been seeing some inflationary pressures that we did not anticipate, and they're really coming at us hot and heavy. You all know all this. It's not news. It's happening everywhere. We thought we were going to be able to survive with the cost-benefit analysis that we did on shutting down the coal plant, buying the rice units. We thought we were good. But the inflationary pressures that we're seeing just generally across the business are too much that we can't weather it without doing something. So we're going to launch a cost of service analysis starting probably in April. Gina is going out for an RFP as we speak to try to get a consultant to come in and help us manage that process. We have people that can do these kinds of things, but we don't have the models. And so that's where the consultants can come in and help us out greatly with that. So be expecting to hear a little bit more about it. I doubt that we're going to have any decisions ready before the end of the calendar year, or maybe right about the end of the calendar year. So that's kind of the time frame that we'll be looking at with this.
Questions about that? Yes, Commissioner Madden.
Thank you. So I just think it's kind of important because I know, whatever business we're in, we have supply chain issues, or if we're building a house or doing anything. And, it seemed to be that the past week, transformer, could you kind of give us a little bit, I'd like details, on like what we're doing to mitigate supply chain, like right now. So this isn't just like ordering something new or constructing a new plant. This is like our basic, cost of service and things that we are doing right now to mitigate some of these supply chain issues.
And that's exactly what Joey's going to talk to us about right now. So thank you for that lead in.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Yes, sir. If I have to lean on the desk, I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'll do my best. So at the request of Commissioner Madden, she wanted to know what we're doing about the supply chain issues and what we're facing. And like everyone else, we're having those struggles. The primary thing that we're struggling with is transformers. And we've thought outside of the box to do a lot of things to try to make sure that we're meeting our customers' expectations and needs. So definitely not a shipping issue. That's not what we're being told, because I've offered to, drive a truck up there myself. We buy our transformers, most of our pad mount transformers from a company called Howard, and it's out of Louisiana. Well, there's a lot of factors that go into why this is happening to us. Part of it was the Hurricane Ida that rolled through, destroyed a lot of their facilities. Other parts is they're having issues with their supply chain. They can't get steel to manufacture the transformers, and then, of course, they can't get workers to put them together. So we've tried to look at other companies. We've sent out our bid sheet, our specifications, and we're basically being told that we would be a spot market to them because we don't have the long-term contracts where we buy in bulk. So we fall lower on that tier. We're doing those things. We're refurbishing transformers. We have an apparatus shop that has kind of transformed over the years to get away from doing that because we outsourced that. Well, we revamped it in the last probably 6 to 8 months, and anything we bring in off the field, we test it, change oil in it, repaint it, change bushings, put it back out in service if we can. If it's damaged to the point that we can't, we're actually turning them into what we call dummy transformers, so that if we have an area that the customers aren't quite ready to move in, but we need to get infrastructure in, we'll put the dummy transformers in place until we get the real ones. Also, we're going out anywhere locating stranded assets where subdivisions might have started and never really took off. So we can't leave the energized wire just exposed, so we're using these transformer dummies to set them down and take the old ones back and paint them, put them back. We're thinking outside the box. Not me, but our staff is doing a really good job. Fred Henderson at the warehouse is working with us as well, always looking at whatever the upcoming orders are and trying to make sure that we get the material we need. Okay, so you can move on. These are just to give you some idea of what our lead time is. So when I have a developer come in and turn in his permits and we tell him it's going to be 60 weeks before we can get pad mount transformers, he or she tends to get a little upset, but that's what we're facing. But today, through the things that we have been doing, such as the things I just mentioned, none of our, so far we haven't had any major delays on any projects, and we haven't had to cancel any projects. A few of the storm hardening projects, such as large transmission reconductoring jobs, I've had to push those back. Largely in part, we use engineered steel 2- and 3-piece constructed poles for wind shear, hurricane protection. Florida Power and Light's actually building Joel, how long is that, 100-mile plus transmission line
Up north.
Yeah, across the state, across I-10 to tie to their newly acquired Gulf Power. So they're buying a lot of those resources. So that's hurting that part of this. There's a lot of factors is what I'm saying. But we're doing everything that we can do. We've changed some of our engineering styles. I know I'm not following this, but go ahead to the next one, please. We're changed our design of jobs. We're actually, our standard is to use underground design on all new subdivisions. Well, we don't have underground transformers. We're not going to delay the subdivision, so we'll change it to overhead for now. And, we're doing a lot of different things like that. We're not scrapping, as I said, unless they're just total garbage, and then we're even trying to use the can as a dummy. We're also looking at, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second, but just bottom line, we're hanging in there and we're getting through it like everybody else is. You can go to the next one. That's it. Cool. And I actually have a staff of people that are monitoring this. They get a full spreadsheet, and if you'd like to see it, I'll send it to you, anybody that wants to see it. But it's, I think, probably 180 pages of all the material that we use that we're having problems trying to get.
Hey, Joey, the first bullet, too, we're designing the jobs to use the transformer sizes that we have. So in the past, we might have put a 50 kVA transformer out there and then 2 pedestals or 1 pedestal. Well, now we may have to go to 100 kVA pad mount transformer and do more pedestals out. And so it's good for staff to be able to be thinking that way, but it's not how you would want to do it. You like to try to control how many customers you have on a transformer and not have more than you should.
Right.
Because one transformer failure then takes out a whole bunch of people as opposed to just maybe 6.
Commissioner Walker has a question, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Joy, question. When you mentioned about transformers and you, I guess, convert from, use, I should say, for being underground versus overhead. Now, if we're doing that, of course, everything can be agreed, I guess, with the development, that kind of thing is going on. You're not able to go back and put back underground, are you?
Well, so far on all of our big underground subdivisions, we're still underground. Okay, so we're still following our standards. Typically where this is occurring is the smaller one-offs, maybe 1 or 2 homes on a line extension that we would have put underground is going overhead. So
It's only just those kind of, I guess, kind of particular situations such as that, not your big developments.
no, sir. So far we're able to keep up with all the requests that we have.
Okay.
Commissioner Madden.
Thank you. So I don't know if y'all think this is as exciting as I do, but I'm like, we just kept texting, could you add this to the meeting? Because, when you're with APPA in DC, you're talking to all of the folks, throughout the country, and then with FMEA throughout the state of Florida. So if you think about this is a natural thing that everyone's experiencing, right? Supply chain issues, got it, on every area. But then add to that procurement policies and what we have to do to procure things, and then think about we're going into hurricane season, and think about already Ida affected something about our supply chain prior to this global supply chain issue with COVID, and we're going into a storm season. We didn't have one last year, thank God. But if, God forbid, we had a storm, how much more complicated this will be for restoration, not just with the supply chain, meaning we won't have the supplies we need to restore, but as we're procuring things to recover, and it's not exactly in line with FEMA reimbursement policies, and it's already so challenging to get your FEMA reimbursements. Like, just so y'all see ahead, I'm like the futurist. Yeah, I always am thinking ahead. Panic early. This could be a disaster, you know what I'm saying? Like, to not just get the supplies you need to recover, but then to ever get reimbursed from recovery. So we need to think about it like, hopefully we won't have a storm. But if not, then we need to be advocating on behalf of ourselves that we were like we were last week. We might need some grace on FEMA reimbursement, procurement. This is exacerbating what's already a very difficult process. If we're, going through procurement and then the price is exponentially changing, like that this is dramatically different than what we've ever experienced, where you're putting in, an order or you have a project and the price is going sky high. And they're getting by with it because they're like, oh, don't you know supply chain? Everybody, this happened to everybody. But will FEMA take that rationale? If in fact we do have a hurricane and if in fact we have to recover and reimburse. So to me, it's awesome that our team is being innovative and nimble and responding and mitigating the best they can so we can have affordable, reliable service, every day. Good job. But going into the hurricane season, I just thought it would be really good at this utility committee meeting to go, wow, so if we don't have a storm, that would be amazing, even more amazing than normal. And if we do have one, we just need to be ready to think about, wow, I just kind of wanted to have you thinking about those little bit of red flags with the supply chain, just in all the complicated effects they're having.
Yeah, the storm doesn't even have to hit us for it to be an issue. IDA took 64,000 transformers out of the market to be replaced to the damage that they had. So all the ones that all the companies like us had ordered for normal work went. They were top priority.
Commissioner Reed, Troutman, then McGee. I'm keeping a list.
Thank you. And just a brief statement before I ask questions. I assume we're using best practices and we're ordering these things in advance?
Oh, yes, sir. I'll give you an example. We order continuously. We have, once we get to a certain level, the orders go out automatically from our warehousing division. But we ordered a shipment of transformers, I think 25 kVA half-hour transformers from Howard Industries that should have been here in November. Still not here. They were supposed to show up in November. They didn't come. They told us they would be here in December, didn't, and right on down the line. Now the last we hear, they're supposed to be here in March, so I'm holding my breath.
Okay, then in layman's terms, I want you to, are we talking about servicing new customers, one? Are we talking about future blackouts, two? Or are we talking about lack of service when we have downtimes?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that because to your point on storm prep, June 1st, or backing it up now because of the change in storms, May 15th, we start ramping up our storm supplies, our storm plan, our EOP, all that. We're working on that now. But we make sure that our storm supplies are there. We're not using those and we're doing things, we're not going in and robbing that right now to try to build subdivisions. So that's there and available for our customers, and I'm going to make sure that we don't get to a point that we can't serve our customers. So whatever we have to do, we'll do it.
We're not anticipating any blackouts. That's going to be some cyber. That's going to be some kind of cyber something, or are we subject to that too?
Well, we're all subject to that, unfortunately, and we've done a lot of things to ramp that up. I think the latest I heard is we already have satellite phones because communication is what's the biggest target right now, and what they feel is the most vulnerable because our grid is pretty solid. But communication will be what they go after because it's easiest. And if you can't communicate with your utilities, can't communicate with the reliability coordinator or the balancing authority, they can't really do their jobs. So all of our control centers in the state of Florida have all the BAs and control centers have satellite phones. Well, now Lakeland Electric is going farther to actually make sure that our general manager, and I guess myself, has one available during storms. And a lot of utilities are doing that, and that's at a recent federal request, or actually a state request from our emergency manager.
I have one other little question, and it's kind of what you brought up, and that's maybe insignificant here, but will the satellite phones work? I'm buying satellite phones for my family, so.
Elon Musk made sure that, yes, sir, they will work.
I'm good.
All right, Commissioner Troutman.
First of all, I'm probably the only one that thinks KVA sounds like a toy store. Can you explain that to me?
KVA?
KVA, and then secondly, because I'm probably the only one in here that's never built anything, could you give me some perspective on what happens in that development process that you alluding to, and how that's affecting that supply chain issue?
Okay, so KVA is just the amperage that piece of equipment will carry. Okay, so it's like anything else. It's like a water line. You start with a larger water pressure line, and you branch down to smaller lines. Well, eventually, somewhere you might have to boost it back up, and that's what we do with our transformers. Or we take the higher voltage, and we can transform it to a 120, 240, what you would get in your house. The KVA, like a 25 KVA, should serve maybe. Help me out, Joel, you're the engineer in the room.
Well,
Two or three?
Just to cut it short, you can roughly approximate KVA in kilowatts to be the same.
Yeah.
Okay, just roughly.
So if normally I would have to put in a 25, and I don't have any 25s, I have to put in a 50, that's overkill, right? And to Commissioner Madden's point, FEMA is like for like. You don't upgrade. You replace exactly what you took out, and that's all they're going to pay for. But we're going to do what we have to do to make sure our customers have power, whether we'll worry about letting the FEMA folks help us out later or not. But what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, just perspective around the development piece. Where does Lincoln Electric typically come in that process of when you start talking about land development?
Very early on, whenever we work closely with our city staff and development, and when the permits come in for a subdivision or a single home or whatever, we're notified, and our engineers have 30 days to turn that around. So we do that consistently. And what I mean by turn it around, they'll do the site preps, they'll go over everything, and they'll come up with a design, a preliminary design of what it'll take, so that the developer understands what the costs are associated with it.
Is that the part that's taking 60 days, or is it just the
No,
transformer?
we're still on track with everything that we do. The part that is, and we haven't had the 60-day delay yet. That's just the lead time on the transformers.
Okay.
So we're telling our developers, if we get to the point where we're ordering transformers, it could be up to 60 days before we can even start the design on this phase. So far, we haven't had to do that. And through the creativity of our staff and the hard work, we're getting through it.
Mr. McGee.
Yeah, because of the shortage of transformers, and I'm sure they'll be spiking in price when they do become available, should we consider a separate reserve just in case that happens? If we get hit by a couple of hurricanes, which we didn't get hit by one the last couple of years, I don't believe, not since 2017, Hurricane Irma. I mean, the chances are each year is we're going to get hit. And
Not for 4 more.
not for 4 more years?
Then, next 4, then somebody else can do it.
I don't know if that's a decision Joe makes or increases.
Listen, if you say something like that to Joey, he's always going to say yes. Gina, the money man.
Money, we do have a reserve, a storm reserve, and we have replenished it as FEMA reimbursed us. We put those funds back into the storm fund that we do have, and we're up to about 15 million.
But you're talking about product, you're talking about actual.
Yeah,
part of.
a separate one just to offset huge increases in expenses such as transformers and other related items to that.
And that is one of the reasons we're going to be doing the rate study is
Cost analysis.
because we are going to be looking at those kind of issues.
Okay, and a quick second question, a dummy transformer, is that just for appearance or does it actually work?
No, it doesn't work, but it's a box basically to cover the energized conductors so that they're safe.
Oh, okay.
It just looks like a normal transformer. We just went in and stripped the guts out of it. Okay, so there is a purpose for that because we have devices that we purchased just for that, but we can't get them.
So it's like a car without an engine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you. Going back to the cost of services analysis, I was just curious, is that something we've done historically, and what are some examples of things that we're hoping to get out of that?
We did one in 2018, right before we decided to rate. What a cost of service study does is it evaluates your cost. You come up with what the total cost of running the system is, capital as well as O&M. And then you compare that to what amount of revenue you're pulling in. And if there's a shortfall, that indicates you need a rate increase. So,
It's the whole thing. It's okay.
Yeah.
It looks at the balance between customer classifications as well, because everybody's paying their fair share, for example.
Okay.
So otherwise, we could just do a revenue requirement, say we need more money and just go get it, but we need to make sure that we're balancing properly.
Yes, Commissioner Walker.
Are you finding maybe some of your larger service providers, as I found you would having rebuilt a house in this past year, getting more of the product or getting stuff, because they just happen to be the larger person on the block versus smaller ones and smaller entities. You think that kind of stuff is happening?
Yes, absolutely. It does make a difference. And I can tell you, I've had the city of Bartow and the city of Fort Meade call us because they don't buy in bulk like we do.
Right.
So we're a higher priority to the manufacturers of whatever the material is that we continually. Meters, for example, everybody's running out of meters, and the lead time on them is 6 months. And we're doing some unique things with meters as well. We're smart grid, and we want to stay smart grid, but if we have to set an old analog meter to get a new customer in power or something like that, we'll do it, and we'll replace it.
Change it out later, yeah.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Tillman.
How's the outlook for substation transformers and associated gear in this environment that we're in? Is that been pushed out?
18 months.
18 months?
18 months on getting a substation transformer. And that is, fortunately, I think we have 2 on site.
Spares.
I wouldn't call them spares, but the ones that they will replace will be. So we're ahead of the game. And Bridgewater Substation is energized. We're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. I saw Catherine. We'll invite y'all to that, but it's actually not covering customers yet because we're still building our distribution lines up to it. But that one's done. We're building Hamilton, but we're going to go out EPC on Hamilton's engineering, procurement, construction contract. Turnkey type thing, and I'm being told by every vendor that is beating down our door to get this contract that they have the material. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
That's good, especially on those.
It does typically take about 24 months to build a substation, so we have a little bit of lead time there on the orders. Anything else on supply?
Yeah, everything else? Go to the rodeo.
All right, now we'll talk about something fun.
Let's do the rodeo.
Yeah, last weekend our linemen competed in a competition down in Fort Pierce, and I have always felt like we have the best linemen in the country, not just the state of Florida, but the country. This competition was for state of Florida municipals, and it's been going on. It was developed in 2000, so 22 years. I actually competed in the first one in Lakeland, which was the first FMEA lineman competition. They called a rodeo, but the first one, and that was my last one. A few years before, the closest place we could go to do it was Perry, Georgia. So the municipals in Florida thought, okay, we can do this. We can set up our own and do it. Been hugely successful. The linemen love it. They get to meet other linemen. They get to show off their skills. They get to compete. And once again, our guys prove that they're top notch. So actually, Catherine's staff, Robert Mitchell put together a little video. I'll let it speak for itself. No sound?
Hold on. It's on. It's on.
Oh, the sound was
Sounds
part of it.
Hold on. Let's try to get it.
We're
patient.
I
see Alex is coming.
It's actually the volume of the...
Yeah, your volume on the thing is muted.
All right.
Right there on the bottom right.
Can you see, Charles?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Actually, it's muted. The computer is muted. You have to
Yeah, the computer's muted.
There you go.
And that's probably going to blast us out.
That's okay. This video deserves it.
Hold on. mouse.
There we go.
Tom Cruise and Liam Neeson.
That is like a Marvel movie?
It is, that's great.
Part of that was, this competition was last Saturday.
Oh, my
Okay, so today's Friday.
That's awesome. Well done. That's cool.
Well done.
How'd we do?
Okay, so let's talk about like I said, there was 11 public power utilities, all the big guys, JA, all of us, Tallahassee, Lakeland, Orlando. We competed as journeymen. We had 2 journeyman teams, which consist of 2 linemen and 1 groundman, and then we had apprentices. Apprentice linemen competed by themselves, showing off their skill set. There was not a requirement for how long you have to be an apprentice. Not a minimum requirement or anything like that, because I'm going to tell you something about one of our kids. He was only there he's been with us 6 months, and he won 3 trophies.
Wow.
So the journeyman does have a requirement of one of those 3 guys has to be 5 years in the seat. So we had 2 teams, and I don't know how many apprentices, 5 or 6 apprentices, but overall this was their largest apprentice class ever. 75 apprentice linemen competed in this competition, which is really good. All right, so out of that, you can go to the next one. We got a first place with one of our line crew teams. They have different events that they compete in, and then the overall results. And you cannot make a mistake. If you drop anything off the pole, it's a 2-point gig, and you're pretty much done, because these teams work to perfection. They're also timed, and they have to race. They have to do it as fast as they can without making a single error. So I was really proud of one of our line crew teams, Clark Grenfell, Austin Carr, Matthew Thomas, got first place in a pin and insulator replacement event that I think the time on that was about 8 minutes is what they give you. But if you just saw the work they did, that's from ground up, change everything out, come back down, clear everything out, stop the clock with no mistakes, and they got first place. So the gentleman I was talking about, Dustin Zorn, he came to us from Mosaic. We heavily recruited him. He's been with us 6 months. And he won second place in 3 different events.
That's awesome.
And he's only been here 6 months. And we had another apprentice, Zane Devine, that won second place in written test. Unfortunately, he didn't get to compete because Saturday morning he woke up with they did the written test on Friday evening, and then Saturday he woke up with 103 temperature, and we had to send him back. But I think he would have done really well, and I look forward to him competing next year. So these are the folks that went. A lot of these names on here are senior guys that are asked to volunteer to be judges and master judges for the event. And so that's why we had such a large contingency there of folks, including myself. But I was just watching and enjoying.
I want to see that picture up there on the pole.
That's the sequel.
Also, while we were there, annually FMEA does safety awards and other recognitions for utilities. This had really nothing to do with the lineman rodeo or the lineman competition. However, it's an opportunity to go ahead and give out those awards. And this year, I'm happy to say, and Mr. Ivy, I'm sure as much as he really touts safety, and rightly so, that we beat out OUC. That was a big deal. So that's Dwayne Goosetree receiving the award. I felt it was a good honor for him to go do that because his guys are the ones that do most of it. Mike, sorry you guys weren't there, but the production guys.
Joey, this is department-wide, it's the whole organization.
It's the whole organization.
So before he takes all the credit, these guys.
Actually, I will have to give Mike a little bit of credit. Production and Steve, production has got a little bit better safety record than we do, but.
So they're zero, where are you?
A little bit.
We work harder. No.
We might need to adjourn.
So you can see the requirements was between 400,000 and 949,000 man-hours of safe work doing this utility work. Production, T&D, substation, relay, all of it. So it's a pretty good deal.
We have probably had the best 2 years for safety that we've ever had in history.
Awesome.
That'd be my guess.
Good work.
And during COVID.
And it's not by accident either. That's a lot of hard work from a lot of people that really care about it, as they should. So these are just our teams. You can read the names, but what was I doing in the picture? You go to the next one real quick. There you go. All right, so those are the apprentice linemen with our gentleman there with the trophies in front of him. I believe it's this gentleman right here or that one. I don't know. They look the same to me. But he's the one that's only been with us 6 months. And most of those apprentices, all of them have been here less than 4 years.
Wow.
And their interest to go and compete, it means a lot to keep us going. That's why it's been going now for 22 years in the state of Florida. I don't see it in any time soon. Now, some of our teams will compete in the APPA rodeo, same type of thing. We're competing against municipals, but now countrywide. And that'll be occurring next month, the end of this month.
Where is it?
It's in Texas, unfortunately.
Commissioner Reed.
It's in Austin, Texas. It precedes the APPA Engineering and Operations Conference, and we usually send our best team and apprentice to that.
Can you give us a baseline of what does our journeyman make versus apprentice per hour?
There's a pretty good gap because apprentices, the only requirement to become an apprentice lineman is a high school diploma or a GED and a driver's license, period. We bring them right out of school, we put them through a 4-year training program, and we give them a journeyman training that's, best in class. So once they do successfully complete their apprenticeship program, they take a test, and they test out. If they pass that test, they go to journeyman, and they go to bottom step journeyman, which there's only 4 steps now. What is it, Charlie, about an $8 difference?
Yeah, I was going to say.
From the top.
To move over, it's about an $8 raise.
So from the top of their 4-year apprenticeship, because they're getting increases as they go through their milestones. So from the top of that apprenticeship to bottom step lineman's about $8 difference.
If I wanted to come join your apprentice, what would I make an hour?
Starting pay?
Starting pay.
23.
Yeah, 20, with the latest adjustment. Yeah,
It's about 23.
23.
But there's a lot of expectations on you to get that money.
Commissioner Walker.
Two things. Talking about pay and how they're coming in as journeymen. How are we doing with bringing those that go through both our power academies? Are we seeing any of those still coming on board, Chile?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So we are. Well, typically they come in through a vehicle that we established years ago. It's called a utility worker position. That is entry level, bottom line. They can come in and that can be used anywhere in Lakeland Electric for any division or department, and they can hire those not just Tenorock, but all the power academies. They can hire those folks in that way. They get their foot in their door. They show what they can do. They apply for other open positions.
So now, Tenorock has been, I think, our most successful one since I've been on the dais. But we did start another one at Kathleen. Was Kathleen Middle?
Kathleen
Kathleen Middle.
Kathleen High School didn't it didn't work out for us.
The instructor left and it just kind of folded in.
And how long has it been now? How long has it been since that scrapped?
About 3 years.
Yeah, it's right before COVID.
We moved our entry level. We had a middle school academy at Lake.
That's what it was.
And we moved it to Kathleen to go in concert with the high school, and then the high school just we didn't get the instructor that we needed, or an instructor period. So.
Yeah, I know we hosted the lineman competition about 5 years ago or so.
It rotates, yes, sir. It rolls around. I forget where it's at next year, but we're back on the list.
So if we come back to us again.
Yes, sir. And I would encourage y'all, let you know, come out and watch it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I enjoy it.
A lot of the families, most of these families travel well with these guys, so there's a huge crowd. You'll see moms, dads, grandma, grandpa, kids, wives, and they just have a blast. They set up something for the kids and jump houses, and they sell, concessions. It's a really cool thing.
Circus.
Is that it? That was the shirts. Every year I let them design their own shirts as long as they're respectful. And then they purchased, and a lot of these guys will purchase these extra for their family and stuff, so we allow that. But they came up with that state of Florida seal. It is United We Climb, if you can't read it. It says 2022 Lake and Electric Rodeo Team. And I don't think you can see it in any of these pictures, but on the left sleeve we have, they put the initials for Stephen A. Hendrick, who passed away. He's 28 or 29 years old. He passed away from cancer this past year, so they wanted to honor him.
Sweet.
Mayor Pro Tem, we got
Yes.
two agreements to run through too, so.
Done.
Yeah, well, yes. Mr. Chapman?
I'm going to have to do with some questions. But y'all go ahead and do your thing.
Are you sure?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, you can stay and talk, Julie. All right, I'll turn it over to Ramona. We have a couple action items, I think.
Just a couple of things. You heard Joel Ivy give a presentation on the quarterly fuel update, and just for the committee's information, that resolution, that's something you'll vote on Monday, and that received a favorable recommendation unanimously from the utility committee. The two agreements that we have, the first item that we have is an agreement with Mid-State Industrial Maintenance, LLC. This is for steam turbine condenser repair for Larson Unit 8. This is something that needs to be done. We have an existing issue with cooling water from Lake Parker leaking into the conditioned boiler water. So the failure to fix this issue puts the unit at risk for pressure, part failures, as well as some corrosion to the turbine blade. Based on the need for the repairs, the purchasing department issued a bid in February of this year. The city received responses from 4 contractors. One of those contractors, Plasticor Inc., failed to include all of its pricing, so they were not considered in the evaluation process, and their bid was deemed incomplete. We had 3 other contractors. You'll see that Mid-State is a Lakeland firm as well, and their bid price came in at $518,911. You'll also note there's not a discrepancy, but a significant price difference between the other two bidders that we had, and one of the explanations for that was the work that would have been done by any of these vendors. There were also subcontracting involved, and there were assumptions made during the bid process, and the assumptions for subcontractor cost for the other 2 vendors was significantly higher than what Mid-State had bid. And obviously, if for some reason that price escalates above that $50,000 threshold for subcontract, we would come back to you for approval. So. The work is scheduled to be done during Unit 8's scheduled spring outage, March through May. Mid-State will have to provide, and its subcontractors, all material, equipment, labor is associated with that total cost that is included in Lakeland Electric's FY22 budget as well.
Do you have a motion for approval?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or questions for Ramona? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right.
The second item we have is a change order number 2 with Siemens. This is for MGT2 hot gas path outage work. You'll recall that this agreement was approved last year, and this was work that was scheduled for fall 2021 outage. That total initial cost was $5,457,753. You already approved a change order number 1 with Siemens back in November of last year. That was an additional cost of $231,855. However, there was additional items that were discovered that require repair during that outage, and since the unit was already in outage, they were Siemens was authorized to go ahead and continue with the repairs and the scope of work. the city's purchasing department has already approved Siemens as a sole source supplier because they're the original equipment manufacturer for the unit. You'll see additional scopes of work identified, line item cost in the agenda memo as well. The total cost of those repairs is $1,771,484.22. The purchase would be governed by an existing proposal agreement with Siemens that was previously approved on October 20th, 2020. And that total cost, again, $1,771,484.22. That's included in Lakeland Electric's FY22 budget.
Do you have a motion?
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion and second. Questions?
What was the $9,500 for bottled water?
That was actually a credit back. If you'll see, there are two credits back.
I
We
saw that,
received
but
a
I mean,
credit.
why
It's
wouldn't we-
minus $9,500
Was it
from
just
the initial
in the
estimate.
bid or something, or what? Or were you going to have $9,500?
No, this is approval of a change order. So these are all scope of work items, and I think that was included in the original cost, and then it was just taken out of there because we weren't charged that. So you'll see that as a negative item.
I saw it was negative. I just couldn't figure how we ordered $95,000. I mean, $95,000
No,
for a bottle of water.
no, and then there's also a deduction for the crane, less time than originally needed for that as well. That's a deduction of $17,076.
I can see a crane. I just can't see
Yeah.
$9,500 of the water. That's what.
We were not charged for that, I can assure you.
Other questions for Ramona? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? All right, motion carries.
That's all we got, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, just really quick to wrap up, I want to thank Mr. Dennis again for your lengthy service. That's so remarkable, and I think we need more citizens to get engaged, so we really appreciate you being here so long. And we appreciate all of our committee members and our commission. Anything else? Meeting's adjourned.